Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First of all, I'd like to thank you to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala because of His mercy and grace, so I can finish and present my research paper. And then I'd like to thank you to my supervisor, Mrs. Aseptiana Parmawati MPD and Mr. Efran Shah SPD MHUM, who have given me support and guidance so I can finish my research paper. Before we're going to the topics, let me introduce myself. My name is Anjani Safitri Ningrum from A3 class 2018 in English Education Study Program, Faculty of Language Education in IKIP SILIWANGI. This video is made for the requirements of student final examinations for Sarjana Pendidikan Degree in English Education. Okay, let's jump to the next slide. Here is the presentation outlines. The first one is background of the research, and then objective of the research, and the third is research methodology, and the fourth is result of the research, and the last is conclusions of the research. And here is the background of the research. Arshad and Mukti, 1983. Speaking ability is the ability to pronounce sentences, to express, convey thought, ideas, and feelings. In line with the researchers' observations when during PPL or teacher training, the researcher found that students had difficulties in learning, especially in learning speaking English. So, what is the solutions? The solutions is developing the narrative text material using Instagram through project-based learning and teaching speaking for senior high school. In line with the previous study by Roshida 2018, she finds out that the learning with the use of Instagram had a positive response from the student. It is proven that Instagram can be an effective learning media. Okay, let's move. Here is the objectives of the research. The first one is to identify the process of developing the narrative text using Instagram through project-based learning and teaching speaking for senior high school. And the second is to investigate the feasibilities of developing the narrative text using Instagram through project-based learning and teaching speaking for senior high school. And the third is to find out the teacher and the student responses toward the developing the narrative text using Instagram through project-based learning and teaching speaking for senior high school. And the last is to investigate the challenges in developing the narrative text material using Instagram through project-based learning and teaching speaking for senior high school. And here's research method, which is the researcher used R&D, research and development. Borg and Gall, 1983, development research as a process used to develop and validate educational product. In line with the Sukmadinata 2009, research and development or R&D as a process of a series of stages that may be accounted for and development of new products or the improvements of current one. And for the research design, which is by Borg and Gall 1983, R&D has a 10 step that have been suggested, but the researcher did adaptations by only using 7 steps. They are research and information collecting, planning, develop a preliminary form of product, and then preliminary field testing, main product revision, and then main field testing, and then the last is operational field testing. Let's move for the subject of the research. The subject of the research were 26 students in the 10th grade from senior high school and Chipende. And then 10 students were taken for preliminary field testing, and then 26 students were taken for main field testing. And for the data collection method, the researcher used 5. The first one is observation. The observation is used when researcher collecting the data during PPL or teacher training, and collecting the data during learning activities at the class when the product is used. And the second is the validation sheet. Is used for validate the product, and the product validate by supervisor 1, supervisor 2, and then an English teachers from senior high school and Chipende. And for the third is interview, that is used for interviewing the English teacher related to the product developing. And the fourth is questionnaire, that is used to know the teacher and students' response about the product. And then the last is research diary, is used to know about schedule or about researcher note during the research, and then to know about the obstacle that faced by researcher. Okay, and for the data analysis, the researcher used 2. The first one is qualitative data analysis technique, and then quantitative data analysis technique. Okay, here is the process and the result of developing the product. The first stage is research information collection. Here, the researcher did the analysis by collecting the data, conducting observations during PPL or teacher training, and the researcher found that students were very enthusiastic about the participating in the learning in the class, but they had difficulties expressing by speaking. At the time of interview with the teacher, and the results were the same, like the students had a difficulty in speaking in English. And the next stage is planning. The researchers sought out several references from book and then from the internet, and the selections of the appropriate materials, and according to students' demand in order to produce product and choose teaching technique after gathering information related to the research. And the method used by the researcher is project-based learning for narrative text material using Instagram applications. And then the third stage is develop a preliminary form of the product. And then in developing the product, the researcher is use the Canva application because there are a lot of interesting templates, and they are very suitable to be used to make product for 10th grade high school. And then the content of the module itself are cover, introductions, table of content, standard competencies, indicator, learning objectives, definitions of narrative text, and then the purpose of narrative text, generic structure, analyzing generic structures, and then language features, example of language features, and then kinds of narrative text, example, and then exercise, and then final project, and then worksheet. Now let's move to the next stage, which is preliminary field testing. At this stage, the researcher is conduct a small-scale test with 10 students who were in a 10th grade. Then 2 groups of 5 students each were created. The narrative text module was also discussed by the researcher, and then after finishing the module exercise, a student submit their final project, which is a video post on Instagram, and the researcher then conduct questionnaire with the 10 students to gather the data. And let's move for main product revisions. The researcher got a revision, a minor revisions from validator for expert 1. Learning objective must be endpoint. And then from expert 2, fix the table of content to make it more presentable. And then the last from practitioner, which is an English teacher. For exercise, just modify it so that there is a lot of practice. The next stage is main field testing, which is after improving the teaching media as suggested by the validator or by the expert. After the researcher tests a small group consists of 10 students, the researcher then tests a large group consists of 26 students. 5 groups of 5 to 6 students were formed. All the narrative text module were then described by a researcher, and students were also asked to work in group on a project to produce a narrative text video that had to be posted on Instagram. And just as it was done on the limited exam, the researcher then questioned the 26 students. And then to the last stage is operational field testing, which is the researcher asked the teacher and the students about the response to the narrative text product. Okay, and here is my product. From the pictures above, there is a cover and then definition, generic structures, and the final project. And when students work on their projects, students must fill in their project design as shown in the pictures above. Yeah, namely like designing project plan, which is a student can fill in the project title, project objective, and then group name and member of group, and creating project timeline, which is the student can fill in the activities and person and the deadline and so on. Then the monitoring activity, the student can fill in the table, which is about the progress of the project. Okay, let's jump to the next slide. Here is the feasibility result of developing the product. As you can see at the table, the researcher got 86.7% from supervisor 1, which is a valid category, and then from supervisor 2, researcher got 86.7%, which is a valid category, and then the last is from English teachers. The researchers got 91.1%, which is a valid category, and then the data show the validations result from supervisor 1 and 2 got a result of 86.7%, and English teachers 7, and English teacher 91.1% in validating the product. It is indicating that the product can be used with a little modification, and yeah, this product can be used because the results are quite very good. Okay, let's move. Here is the student and the teacher responses toward the product. For the student responses, researcher had a preliminary field testing and then main field testing. In the preliminary field testing stage, researcher got 91.8% 6%, which is a strongly agree category. And then for the main field testing, the researcher got 90.6%, which is a strongly agree category. And the result of the two stages were above 80%, which indicated strongly agree category. And then for the teacher's responses, the researcher got 91.1%, which is a strongly agree category. And then the narrative text module using Instagram through project-based learning got a strongly agree responses. Okay, here is the researcher's challenges in developing the product. The first one, researcher had a difficulty finding a suitable design, and then the researcher had a difficulty finding valid references. And for the third, researcher had a limited time to conduct research due to upcoming class promotion exam. And the last is insufficient students' cell phone capacity to make videos. This is the last part of this presentations, which is the conclusions of the research. The first one is the narrative text material using Instagram through project-based learning for 10th grade student has developed by using 7 stages of Bird and Gull model. There is research information collection, planning, and then develop a preliminary form of a product, and then preliminary field testing, and then main product revision and main field testing, and for the last is operational field testing. And the second is the narrative text teaching material using Instagram through project-based learning is feasible and can be used at school. And for third point is the students and the teachers' responses to the product are strongly agree, which is they agree that using Instagram can make students improve their English speaking skill. And for the last, in the process, there are some obstacles in developing the product, but it can be handled well. I think enough. Thank you for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.